Hello, good evening. It's Julia here, single mum entrepreneur, coming to you live on Saturday night. It is day 32 of my 365 days of Facebook Lives. And I just thought, the word popped into my head and I thought, what can I say about courage? Because courage is a really important word to me. And I think if there's one characteristic that I could use, if I was not saying necessarily anybody else would use that, they might use that noun to describe me. But if I could think of one word which has almost kind of like defined and shaped my life, and been ever present in me as a person, it's that word courage. And I remember when I started, when I found myself in the position where I thought, okay, it's really difficult to get another corporate sales job. I was really struggling. I was finding it very hard. I was struggling for money. My confidence was at an all-time low. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go into business for myself. I'm just going to start. And obviously, I'd been very much into kind of selling stuff online and so on. So that's, when I started thinking about going into e-commerce. But it was funny, because at the time, a lot of people were kind of like, well, you're a single mum, you need to have a stable income. What is wrong with you? Why on earth are you thinking of just doing your own thing when your circumstances aren't really, conducive to doing your own thing? And when I look back now and I think, well, for me, it was a really easy decision to make. For a number of reasons, which I'll also go into, and I've talked about before actually, but it was an easy decision to make because there was a sense of fearlessness there. I mean, it was calculated fearlessness, if that makes sense. It wasn't blindly going into something without having done my research and assessed the pros and the cons and all of that. But because I've experienced, I've gone through a number of things in my life where I've had to be courageous. For me, taking that risk and starting my own business, hello, good evening, starting my own business, it required a courage that I already had. And I recognise that not everybody necessarily has that. They've got other qualities, but maybe there's that fear there about starting their own business, for example. But for me, going into my own business, doing my own thing, was totally a natural thing to do. And I thought about, the times I've had to be courageous, going back to this courage, why is courage so important in our life, but also especially in, when you're starting a business. I remember when I left university, I did a German degree. And even before I left university, I went to university that was 300 miles away from home, from Leeds. And, I was an only child and, my mum was very protective and, you'd have thought the last place I would go would be almost like the other end of the UK almost. You would have thought I'd kind of stick close to home. But I was determined. I've always been a bit of a risk taker and I've always wanted to expand my horizons. So I kind of, that was it. So I chose universities that were, I think I had like Belfast and Stirling in Scotland and Swansea in Wales. And everyone was like, why are you choosing, what's wrong? Do you want to get away from your parents or something? But yeah, and then when I left university, I went to do a teaching job in Germany. I just went, obviously I got myself a job before I went out there and so on, had some phone interviews, but off I went. I went off to Germany and I remember I got a flat. I rented a flat at the time. We're talking about Deutschmarks. It was for the euro. It was 300 Deutschmarks a month. I can't remember what that is. I think it was roughly about £100 at the time. And so I went out to live in this, it was almost kind of like people would have called it, well, people did at the time, so it was like a ghetto. It wasn't really, it was just a Turkish community who were absolutely lovely and had some really nice little shops. I used to go and get my food. My neighbours really looked after me. But I used to have to go through the red light district to get there and to get home at night, to get to the school where I was teaching and to get back. And yeah, I mean, sometimes I get the tram, but, you know, I didn't drive or anything. I was only 22 and I hadn't learned to drive yet. So I used to scoot through the red light district, as that's what it was called, Rote Licht. I used to kind of scoot through the red light district, and yeah, I kind of did all that, and you know, all the things that I've been through. You know, I mean, even when I went on a mission with the church in 2004, and we were you know, kind of going around the streets helping the homeless, and I was almost kind of, you know, I was kind of shouting to the rooftops that we were there to help and come to our, you know, worship at Notre Dame. Sad Notre Dame, but yeah, so we're saying come to, you know, we're having this gathering, you know, and I was kind of, I had no fear at all. I was just almost wasn't being too evangelical, but I was just kind of spreading this love and happiness in French, my French is better, on the streets of Paris. And I remember at the time there was a priest who was with us. He was quite elderly. He was a lovely chap, really lovely chap. And he said, oh gosh, if there's one word I could say about you, it's you're courageous. You know, and that always stuck with me. So I think, you know, when I decided to just start my own business instead of just continuing to be employed and unhappily employed, the courage that I needed to do that was just there, because I've taken leaps of faith my whole life. So, you know, but like I said, it's not without, you know, it's not been complete blind risks that I've taken. You know, so I kind of wrote a little list. I thought, okay, so if you're starting your own business, because a lot of people have such a fear of starting their own business, you know, so what would I advise if you wanted to, you know, if you were thinking, gosh, I don't know what to do. And the most important thing is you have to have your why. And I've spoken about that before. What are your reasons? You know, what are your personal goals for this? What will be your kind of your financial goals? You know, write down the reasons why and be clear on why you're starting your business. You know, and if you also write down your fears as well, then you can at least address them. And I've always found that writing things down absolutely helps, you know, and really in detail. I mean, kind of detailing it. I know writing or typing, whatever, you know, really kind of go into the detail, you know, the depth of your why. Be really clear on your why. Be really clear on the fears and what's stopping you. You know, that's absolutely key to kind of discovering and finding this courage to start, you know, to start your own business. You know, because I'm never one to advocate that you should abandon, you know, all kind of cares and just start and put yourself into financial jeopardy, you know, by doing not at all. But, you know, there are ways that you can approach it if you think, you know what, I've wanted to do this for years, but I'm really scared of just stepping out and doing it. Well, yeah, by writing down your why, being clear on your why and your personal and business goal. Now I've got low battery, let's hope it doesn't die. Yes, that's obviously a massive part of it. You know, and also you have to do your research. You know, you have to maybe join forums, look on, you know, groups, research on LinkedIn, talk to other people who you know have started their own business, you know, kind of really go into the research side. You know, you can never arm yourself with too much knowledge about, you know, starting your own business, about the niche that you want to go into potentially. You know, and I used to do loads of research. I used to sign up to little free courses and things like that. I used to arm myself with as much knowledge as I could to help mitigate that fear that things might go wrong. Because, I mean, invariably, actually, you've got to be realistic. And that's another point, you know, be realistic that, you know, you've got to understand those potential risks and really face them. And, you know, and not, I mean, yes, you can have great ambitions, but don't put unrealistic expectations on yourself in too short a time frame, because that can really lead you to feel very disheartened if you don't actually, oh, and I've just seen I've got a new order for 2 items on my store. Hooray! I keep getting these notifications. So yeah. So it's really, really important that you you know, you keep your expectations in check. And I don't mean have low ambitions or low standards or anything like that. I mean just have those milestones and think, okay, what can I achieve in a certain time frame given that I've got these other things going on in my life, and get somebody to help you with that. Don't just try and do it all alone, because the great thing about the online business world now is that there's so much help out there. You don't have to build a business alone. Building your support system is another key point. Build your support system online and offline. And I couldn't be where I am now, which, oh my gosh, I'm still in a big building phase. I've still got lots ahead of me that I need to do. But without that support structure, I would really find it hard. I would really, really find it difficult, because yes, you have to find the courage in yourself, but to have accountability and a support structure and encouragement and praise and advice from people around you is just so important. The one thing that I would say is that you do have to be crystal clear on your financial situation. And I kind of learned from my mistakes, because I, thought I was maybe a bit too unrealistic in the start in terms of what I thought I could achieve. Because when I started out in e-commerce, I didn't get the niche quite right at the start. And that's another thing, I made mistakes. But, failure is part, I put a post on my page today, failure is part of success. It's not, the opposite of success, actually, it's part of success. And that is, that's what you've got to be prepared for. And overcome your fear of failure, and realise that failure can sometimes be good, and an opportunity to grow and, kind of alter your course slightly, or wherever it's needed to be altered. But certainly be very clear on your finances. And I would never say to anybody, yes, I went kind of full pelt and then realised into my e-commerce world, and then I realised I needed to still have a hand in doing my sales stuff and doing sales contracts. So I was I had the two going on at the same time. So I would always say, you can start a side hustle. if you work 40 to 60 hours a week on average, 45 hours is about average, isn't it, a week? There are lots of hours outside of that. And yes, I appreciate, more than anyone, that you've got demands of family and so on, but there are still windows where you can start building your side hustle. So there is, and there's so much help out there about getting, starting side hustles. I feel like I'm a bit like the queen of the side hustle. I've had side hustles of side hustles. And that's what my life's been like. Another definition would be hustler. I'm a hustler. But be crystal clear on what you need every month net to survive, and to not kind of pull your sort of, when I say standard of living, you don't want to suddenly, like I found, I didn't suddenly want to strip everything back out of my children's lives, like some of the hobbies that they really loved, and my son's drama and things like that. I didn't want to just throw everything out. I knew I there were some things I had to keep going. So where could I make changes? Where could I make cuts? So you have to really analyse those and be crystal clear on your finances, and start it as a part-time side hustle. But don't let your fear of starting something prevent you from starting it at all. Not at all. It's perfectly doable. And there's just nothing worse than kind of grinding away at this sort of 9 to 5. And then you get to Friday and you think, yeah, it's the weekend. Well, I love the fact that, I've got the flexibility. My weekend can be any time, but I want to be doing something that I love so much that actually I don't want to think, I'm going to quit and Friday it's the weekend, yay, because I look forward to working on my my business at any time of day or night. And that's a great feeling to have. So that's what I would say. And that's what I wanted to communicate about courage in a rather long-winded way, is that if you don't feel that you are a courageous person, just look at all the times when you have been courageous, no matter how small they are. Look at all the times when you've had to step outside of your comfort zone, when you've had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, as they say. Look at all those times. And you probably surprise yourself, and then just think, how can I apply that courage that I found in these other situations to starting a business? And then just work your way through those points that I've just talked about, and you'll find you feel a heck of a lot more prepared. Thanks very much. Lots of love. Bye bye.